Alright, thanks, Larry. Bye. I gotta fix my backdrop, guys. Let's see. More actions. Fix. Oh.
Good morning, Kentucky Chapter of IPMA-HR. We are excited that you're joining us today for what is our first virtual meeting. Obviously, 2020 has been a challenging year. However, most of us have gotten a lot more experience at virtual video and conferencing software. So we're glad that you're a part of this 2020 fall meeting of the Kentucky Chapter IPMA-HR. And just to give a few tips to help you with today's presentation. Closed captioning is available if needed. You'll just click on the CC icon on computer, and all of our attendees today will not have access to their web and audio features. However, if you have a comment or a question, just simply click on the Q&A icon on your menu options, and you will be able to send us a comment or a question, and we'll respond to those throughout the course of today's meeting. So with that said, again, welcome. We're glad to have you. If you're not a member of Kentucky Chapter IPMA-HR, we hope that you will join, and you can go to our Ticket Leap site off of our website to get your membership for the 2020-2021 membership year. So at this point, I would like to welcome Elena Meyer, Chapter President of our Kentucky Chapter. And with that, I will turn it over to Elena. Madam President.
Thank you, Robbie, and thank you for those helpful technical tips. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this morning. We hope you are doing well and staying safe. It is so nice to have so many HR professionals together this morning, even if it is virtually. Although this may not be our traditional in-person meeting, and I will certainly miss seeing your smiling faces, we are so excited to host a meeting for the Kentucky Chapter of IPMA-HR. We are so thankful for technology that allows us to still meet and gather virtually during this time. Today, we have an exciting agenda prepared for you. We look forward to hearing from Keith regarding teleworking and hosting our fall business meeting. We are going to start off taking a look at the agenda. Hopefully, you've had a chance to review this already. First, we are going to have our professional development, and then we will move forward into our business meeting, covering old business and new business. So we have quite a bit to share today. We will also conduct our election for our board of directors during the business meeting. As you may recall, this was typically done in the summer meeting, but was moved to the fall meeting due to the pandemic. As a reminder, please be sure, if you have not done so already, to pay your chapter dues. These can be paid through our Kentucky IPMA-HR website. Remember, as a chapter, we have to submit our numbers to International IPMA in the fall. So it's important that we do get these paid. And again, if you're not a member already, as Robbie mentioned, we encourage you to join. Thank you all for your ongoing support and your participation in the Kentucky chapter. Okay, we are going to go ahead and get started with our professional development. Again, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to spending a couple hours with you this morning. I would like to start by introducing Zack Culver from KEEP, the Kentucky Employee Assistance Program. He is going to be sharing some great information with us about how to navigate telecommuting. Welcome, Zack, and thank you for joining us today.
Great, Elena. I appreciate it. Okay, my presentation up here. All right. So it's great to be with you all this morning. As Robbie mentioned, the Q&A box is being monitored, so I'm going to leave a few minutes at the end of today's presentation. So feel free to enter in any questions, and I'll address those that we have time for. And you can always reach out to me at KEEP with any questions that you might have afterwards, and I'll provide the contact information and talk a little bit about us. Today we're going to be talking about the dangers of working from home, what is known about the way the brain works as we make connections with others, and ways in which to mitigate possible issues caused by this new way of working. I'm going to hopefully make some of this a little lighter as we progress along. It's kind of a heavy topic. This workshop's not just relevant because of COVID, though. This is obviously that's a catalyst for its development, but there has been a gradual shift to working from home globally that this pandemic really kicked into high gear. In many sectors of the economy, there's been an increase in those employees working from home. The Kentucky state government has found it necessary to explore this as we reckon with the coronavirus. It'll be interesting to see what occurs when we get a vaccine and feel safer returning to work in full force after an extended period of telecommuting. Regardless, this is a reality now for many of us and for the foreseeable future. And who knows what the landscape's going to look like for the next year and the years to come. So loneliness has popped up on the world stage even before the pandemic, and we were directed into physical distancing. So the stage has been set for the worsening of problems, really. Back in 2018, Great Britain actually appointed a minister of loneliness to address the issue because of the increased data about its negative impacts, and we're recognizing that in the States as well. Research shows that the magnitude of risk presented by social isolation is similar in magnitude to that of physical inactivity, obesity, and smoking 15 cigarettes a day or more. The American Cancer Society analyzed data from more than 580,000 adults and found that social isolation increases the risk of premature death. That was double the risk within the African American population and increased the risk in Caucasians 60 to 84%. So some big changes there, big numbers, big impacts. Loneliness can result in depression, which is probably obvious, but it can also worsen feelings of anxiety. And I think anxiety sufferers can attest to the risk of too much time in their own head, which is often mitigated through the interactions with others and the perspective that other people can provide. Worry can impact people's ability to fall asleep due to the physical agitation that it can accompany such thinking. And long-term anxiety and depression appear to result in changes in how the brain works, including whether we get the full restorative effects of sleep, even when we're getting that recommended 7 to 8 hours. A combination of functional alterations in the brain and fatigue lead to breakdowns in those vital frontal lobe areas governing our executive functions, those functions that include focus and planning and empathy, all things we need within our field. Some data suggests that loneliness may predict even more permanent problems in our senior years as the risk for dementia increases by 40% for those identifying as lonely. And the problems don't stop with the brain. A 2016 study linked loneliness to a 30% chance increased risk of stroke and the development of coronary heart disease. And researchers believe that a lonely individual's higher risk of ill health likely stems from several combined factors, behavioral, biological, psychological, all dimensions that we're going to be talking about here within the next 40 minutes or so. The intersection of the biological and the psychological appear to play a powerful role in the presence of chronic health problems due to its impact on our immune system, no matter what stage of life we're in. So enter psychoneuroimmunology. And boy, I practiced saying that word about 9 times. This is the field that examines the relationship between our brains and our immune system. So over the past decade, immunology on its own has become more familiar to the general population because of one word: inflammation. Inflammation within the body has been implicated in a whole host of conditions, ranging from cancer to diabetes to rheumatoid arthritis. Inflammation as a process is good. It's the biological response to injury and works towards healing, but it's when the inflammation is chronic that we really start having problems. And unfortunately, it appears that the brain can set off this process even when it's not necessary. So social safety theory argues that developing and maintaining friendly social bonds is a fundamental organizing principle of human behavior. And threats to this social safety are a critical feature of the psychological stressors that increase risk for disease. The human brain and the immune system are principally designed to keep the body biologically safe. And they do this by continually monitoring and responding to social, physical, and microbial threats in the environment. Situations involving social conflict, isolation, devaluation, rejection, and exclusion historically increase the risk for physical injury and infection. Why? Well, because we need people to be responsible to. When I'm left alone for any length of time, I run the risk of devolving into an id-propelled subhuman subsisting on Doritos and nerdy movie marathons. That's a slight exaggeration, emphasis on the slight, but we need other people to be accountable too. We need people to point out when we might be straying from healthy choices or when we might be actively avoiding signs of health problems. We need people to motivate us to do hard work or make the healthier choice. It's helpful to have someone there that when we're in distress or if we're experiencing life-threatening events or to reduce the risk of being assaulted, safety in numbers. More often than not, being alone increased your mortality. That's how it's been throughout history. Our brain knows this is truth. So anticipatory neuroimmune reactivity to social threats are strong and result in inflammation as a prepping of the body for injury. So when this is sustained, the biological threat response increases individual risk for several inflammation-related diseases, such as heart disease, and also impedes the body's ability to fight off infection. So there was a study in 2015 at the University of California, and it provides a little bit more information on how this works. The researchers examined genes, gene expressions in leukocytes, and those leukocytes, those are the white blood cells that play key roles in the immune system's response to infection. They found that the leukocytes of lonely participants showed an increased expression of inflammation and a decreased expression of genes. So simply put, those who were lonely had less immunity and more inflammation than those that didn't. So let's look at those situations I mentioned either in the context earlier, in the context of today's realities, right? So social conflict, maybe not that much going on now that we can get away from our colleagues easier by working from home, but how about those folks that are stuck at home with abusers? And we are seeing a stark rise in domestic violence during this time. And then isolation, can't get more isolated than spending the majority of time home, especially if we live alone. Devaluation, feeling like the work you're doing isn't appreciated by your management, whether that's accurate or just imagined. Rejection, reaching out by email or instant message and not getting a response. Communication is really, really important. I'm going to be driving that home. And exclusion, finding out that there was maybe a virtual meeting or an in-depth instant messaging conversation without your involvement. We've got to be mindful of all of these things occurring. Don't feel that twinge of hurt or anger and then not address it. That feeling's feedback. It's telling you that something needs to be done. It just has to be approached in a respectful and productive fashion. We need to stop running from discomfort and accept that it's information, guidance to start a dialogue. Different types of mindfulness meditations can help us with that awareness. I'm a big fan of those, as probably a lot of people know. And Keith has 5 guided meditations narrated by yours truly on our website under tips to manage COVID anxiety. One of them is labeled sitting with your stress and can guide you through how to increase awareness of your body's feedback. And then that helps you develop a plan for the most appropriate way to react to that information. So I've included the link to the meditations in the resource sections of the handouts that accompany today's webinar. Okay, so we're starting to see the importance of psychology, or more specifically, how we think about our environment and our place in it. You've heard people say, I love my alone time, and I myself, being a therapist who speaks to others for a living, have to have me time, or I get run down with the stress that comes from heightened levels of empathy, measuring my words, being aware of individual sensitivities. That type of deliberate distancing is not the same thing as loneliness, and this is where the behavioral dimension comes to bear. Isolating oneself can actually be very helpful and a good coping strategy when feeling overwhelmed, or if your social skill is energy tanked on empty. The real sticking point here is when we look at it in terms of choice. So being alone seems not to be a bad thing until you feel that it's being imposed on you because you don't have an adequate social network due to lack of emotional, mental, or financial resources. You may be finding yourself alone because you're being required to isolate, right? Out of fear of a worldwide health crisis or social distancing. And that removal of choice is a big part of the problem. But as I mentioned from the outset, loneliness has been an increasing problem even before COVID. According to the last completed census back in 2010, a little over 25% of the population is living alone. That's the largest number of people in recorded history, and that's about 35 million. Other trends that can add to the conversation include decreases in marriage rates and number of children per household, all of which declined since the previous census. So there seems to be a general feel of loneliness increasing throughout society, and especially among the younger populations. 79% of Gen Zers feel alone, while 71% of millennials report themselves as lonely, and compare this to only about 50% of the baby boomers. This survey, the one I'm mentioning, was ran by Cigna. They've been doing it every few years, and it talked to 10,000 adults. 61% classified themselves as lonely, and it's a 7% increase in just over 2 years. And it's not just about age either. This is an issue across race. The Cigna study found that Hispanic respondents were actually the ones that rated themselves as most lonely, followed by others that identify their race as other, and then followed by African Americans. So living alone doesn't necessarily mean you feel alone. Perception is key. I always say that in psychology. And those that have people in their lives still can feel lonely. Last year, a Pew Research survey surveyed more than 6,000 U.S. adults, and they linked frequent loneliness to dissatisfaction with one's family, one's social life, and with one's community life. So it's not a complete lack of these supports, but it's a dissatisfaction with the quality. And that's important to keep important to keep in mind as we're going to move forward talking today about this topic. Loneliness is an experience that's been around since the beginning of time, and we all deal with it. And it can occur during big transitions in your life, like death of a loved one, a divorce, or a move. This kind of loneliness is referred to as reactive loneliness. Problems can arise, however, when we experience loneliness on a chronic level. If reactive loneliness is painful, chronic loneliness is torturous. So chronic loneliness is most likely to set in when individuals either don't have the emotional, mental, or financial resources to get out and satisfy their social needs, or they lack a social circle that can provide these benefits. Now, of course, currently we have to contend with having these resources, but not being able to get to them. In either scenario, the chronic nature of loneliness is when things become more problematic and when many of the major negative health consequences can set in. So relationship quality can affect health by influencing psychosocial factors such as mood, your motivation, your coping strategies. Friends and family members influence your health-related behaviors, such as whether or not you're eating well or exercising. The quality of our Facebook friends are not what has been, the quantity of our Facebook friends is not what's beneficial. It's the substantive interactions you have with folks that are important. And I feel like the quickie likes and reposts are not really meeting the need. And that way of interacting might be turning into the norm. So, they're not going to be a suitable replacement for a wave to someone or a quick word in the hallway. Even small interactions like these can have great benefits. It's quality. And that's what I'm hoping to argue. The quality includes more interactive contact that when possible include being able to see a person's face, like we're doing today through the use of technology. Now, I know it's not perfect. If you're a parent like me, then you've probably gotten frustrated on some level with the NTI. But for every glitch with school, I try to remember that if this was as recent as 10 years ago, I'd be having to homeschool my kids all by myself, or feel extremely removed from the team. Quick drop-ins through Teams and Skype have so much more of a positive impact on how a person assesses how they're doing with work. Helps people feel part of a community when they can see someone react to the work they've done or just say, nice to see you. Findings by the National Academy of Sciences suggest that even brief social contact that does not involve a close emotional bond, such as a small talk with a neighbor, can extend a person's life. And these findings can be generalized to online contact as well. Obviously, those close substantive relationships are important, but what I want to highlight is that these examples have more to do with interacting with someone face-to-face, even if for a short time, and even if it's online, because we're finding that's making all the difference. We're hardwired, our brain is hardwired to be social. We need others to survive, and found early on in our histories before industrialization that if we didn't hunt and live in groups, we more often than not died. There are dedicated areas of the brain that react to the interaction of others. Social bonding has been shown to reduce blood pressure, lower cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone, because that social connection triggers the release of something called oxytocin. This has been nauseatingly referred to as the cuddle hormone. But optimal levels of cortisol, because cortisol is helpful at the right levels, because it helps with glucose metabolism, boosts our immune system. If it gets too much, it becomes problematic. But optimal levels have been linked to strong positive family relationships in conjunction with the release of oxytocin that those relationships can trigger. And this need for support starts early. Humans are capable of so much more than other creatures on this planet, but we start off more vulnerable than other animals. Having an attachment to our caregiver is vital because we're just struggling to keep our heads up. It's hard to see. So finding food and protecting ourselves is not an option alone. Getting close to a baby's face makes that connection because that's when the face is clear for the infant. Breastfeeding releases oxytocin, making small noises and smiling does the same. We can't help to react positively to a smile because our brain is set up for that. The part of your brain that is responsible for smiling when happy or mimicking others smile resides in the cingulate cortex of the brain. And this is an unconscious automatic response area. So that's why smiling is contagious. It sets up a relationship with the person you smile at because they struggle to suppress that automatic response. They found that in a Swedish study, really interesting one, where subjects were shown pictures of several emotions: joy, anger, fear, and surprise. When the picture of someone smiling was presented, the researchers asked the subjects to frown, but instead what they found was that the facial expressions went directly to imitating what the subject saw. And that's a good thing because smiling releases feel-good neurotransmitters, those chemicals in our brain, dopamine, endorphins. They know, in addition to relaxing the body, it'll lower our heart rate. And faces are important for bonding. It's important for connection, not just as a child, but also in adulthood. So children who experience social and emotional neglect are significantly higher at a higher risk for depression, anxiety, learning disabilities, and this is all due to the stunting of growth in areas of the brain. Additionally, because of the lack of modeling of appropriate social and emotional give and take, the things that really maintain relationship, there's a real deficit in empathy. And empathy seems to be a process that's in danger. So absence of social connections doesn't just impact children in their formative years, but also affects adults. And the social skills they've built start to deteriorate. The research on the brain shows us this, but anecdotally, I've seen it in my private practice occur, with folks that are pretty much housebound due to anxiety and forget many of the social norms that most of us take for granted. And they almost act like they're alone even when they're around others. There has been a rise in the number of autism diagnoses over the past 20 years, and the CDC reports that the prevalence of autism has doubled over that span of time. There has been some concern that the quick increase in technologies that reduce the need for face-to-face contact over the past 40 years may be a factor. Now, there's really no evidence to support that theory, but we can take some interesting information from the population. People among the autism spectrum have often been miscategorized as lacking in empathy or not interested in relationships. And in reality, many folks with the diagnosis experience a great deal of anxiety about relationships because they want them, but struggle with the skills to build and maintain a social network, and in effect are lonely, right? So there might be those lack of resources we discussed previously, in addition to being excluded or isolated due to what others might consider odd behavior. Some of that behavior might be an obvious avoidance of eye contact, which is a frequent observable behavior of those on the autism spectrum. That avoidance is not due to any type of disinterest, but is often a way to manage anxiety or to better focus on the content of the conversation, because the information provided by nonverbal communication of the face, for those that suffering from autism, it's overstimulating. And I can identify, I mean, you know, when I doing in-person workshops and looking at the face of my, you know, my audience and not getting any information, that can be overstimulating because apparently people are falling asleep on me or something. And that's the part I really want to continue to emphasize. We respond to visual cues, and they're an incredibly important part of communication and can significantly impact us on an unconscious level. So, you know, what happens when we can't see those that we work with? Uncertainty. Wow, we keep hearing that word a lot in relation to the pandemic, right? Uncertainty. It kind of worms its way into our brain, especially without that nonverbal or direct feedback from our managers or our coworkers. Our minds can be a perpetual worst case scenario machine that gets more prolific and louder the more alone that we are. Many of us are asked to be, you know, to write everything down as we go along through our days when we're working from home. And that has led many folks to significant distress, not because they're not working, but because they're evaluating whether they're working hard enough, or you know, for their managers or compared to others. You know, we're not machines, and we definitely haven't been able to solve this work personal life balance now that they overlap. So get some help. You know, ask colleagues what they're doing that works. You know, in my 16 plus years of working at Keep, I get a large number of sighs and cross-eyed looks when I instruct employees to ask questions of their manager about more efficient ways of doing things. People are anxious about asking questions because they don't want to look stupid. Or they don't want to have that look that screams, I can't believe you don't know how to do that. We've got them at one time or another in our careers, but it's usually in the minority. You know, our brain, or more specifically our threat response, tends to remember the bad things a lot more strongly than the good. So, and the research shows that people who ask questions are seen as more confident. So when they surveyed managers, they indicated that leadership might be hesitant to put someone in charge that never asked questions because they could be seen as incapable of getting input or prone to just letting mistakes compound. So, okay. So, you know, let this be a time for reset. You know, maybe being alone will help grease the social machine in a lot of work offices, workspaces. You know, making communication with those you find a challenge before more accessible. You know, take a break. Be more mindful of your thoughts. That's meditation speak for the uninitiated. And try to connect with the idea that we are all struggling in similar ways. That should bind us more together as humans than ever before. You know, we tend to rally around distress, so sharing your struggles with colleagues can be affirming instead of sitting alone and beating yourself up for not handling things correctly. Or reach out to us to Keep, you know, get feedback from your boss that you're doing what you need to do, or your colleagues. You know, if you're being told that you're not doing enough, at least you have information to work with, right? So, okay. So, and then, you know, as far as, you know, aggression can be an issue too. You know, in 2018, they did a survey looking at anger in America. 84% surveyed said Americans are angrier today than a generation ago. 42% have said they were more angrier than they were the year before. And 29% said the news often made them angry. And 90% said they were more likely to express their anger on social media than in person, right? Because it's easier. You don't have to see somebody's face. And this was all before COVID and the protests. So you can only imagine what we're thinking now, but we can change that if we want to, right? Anger might feel justified, but it rarely feels good, especially when the yelling dies down. You know, be the change you wish to see in the world, right? I think most people have heard that from Mahatma Gandhi. It's perfect in its simplicity, but it's infinitely difficult in its execution, because it's relying on the hopes that if we put in the work, others are going to do the same. And maybe sometimes it's hard to take that leap of faith when we see everybody being unapproachable or expressionless behind a mask. So always remember, anger is never the first response, but always a reaction to anxiety that something of ours is being taken away. And in a world where it seems like resources are getting harder and harder to come by, then anxiety can be real. However, it doesn't mean we need to beat each other's throats, right? So tapping into our empathy is really key here. We can all identify with the fear that we might lose our financial security or our rights or our freedom or our lives. And that shared human worry is what can unite us instead of divide us. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to build skills so that we feel more confident. We can decrease that anxiety that I was referring to. You know, when I talked before about coming out of a lack of skill, to increase social network, not having those resources available to us, build those skills, right? And we've got a lot of great options available as state government employees. You know, my purpose is a good list of all of these things here, and this is just a few of them that can really help us develop that confidence needed so that we can maybe feel more confident to ask questions and not be anxious and not respond defensively. Continue that dialogue, right? And reach out. And I also want to highlight, if everybody's not aware, right there at the top of the My Purpose page is the keep link for the virus-related anxiety, and a good resource, of course, as we feel, but I'm biased. And also too, in my research, you know, a lot of people, you know, this has never been an issue for me since COVID started, but a lot of folks saying that they're bored when they're at home and they're off of work. I got 2 kids, so that's probably the reason why, but I'm not bored. But there's amazing free to low cost classes out there. In addition, from Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Columbia, MIT, these websites called Coursera and EDX. There's about 13,000 courses from more than 900 universities that are free or low cost to you. Basically, you just kind of get in to audit the class if there's space. Really interesting resources out there. All right, so let's talk about real specific stuff and kind of set up to get to where the rubber meets the road. So if I haven't emphasized the importance of the visual communications enough, then let me do it here. Let's try to make these a regular occurrence. It activates our neurochemistry as close as if being physically with people, because you're getting the benefits of facial nonverbal cues and higher doses of those neurotransmitters that keep us healthy. You know, we're building a sense of connectedness and boosting that feeling of social safety. So this includes decreasing misinterpretations that come from quicker modes of communication that tend to be minimal or abrupt. And these often result in higher chances that folks weave in their own insecurities to the message. And even if you find yourself writing more to colleagues, tone and mood still can be misinterpreted. So actually talking to the person directly is favorable, because there's a reduced chance of misinterpretation. You know, the video options aren't convenient or available. At least prioritize the phone conversations. You'll still get more information from the way someone's speaking to you. Again, tone, mood, than you would through an email or an instant message or a text. Try to set a designated space in your residence for work. You know, you're primed for other tasks in your home, relaxing, hobbies, parenting, not doing work. So if you can bring something from your original workspace to your home, then do that. You know, the brain makes associations. It better helps set the stage. I have my coffee cup from work. That's the first thing I put in my hands in the morning. I have my to-do list folder with me. What's the to-do list folder? Well, then take my time management workshop, and you can find out what that is. So, places to avoid when possible: the bed. Obviously, we associate that with sleep. The couch, we're associating that with TV or reading. The kitchen or the dining room table, because you might find yourself adding the COVID-19, as in 19 pounds, because you're associating that area with food, right? If you can't avoid these spots, then change the setting up. New tablecloth, sit in a different chair than you're used to. A quick note about eating: the usual that you've heard about shopping for health is more important now than ever. Because you have more access to everything you buy when you're at home. Yeah, you can bring bad food to work, but never as much as that is in your fridge and in your cabinets, right? So did you know that this exists? Well, now you do, and you're welcome. So you can combine chocolate ice cream and potato chips. So now I can commit to eating two of the things that I have the hardest time getting away from all simultaneously. So, if you can weaponize kind of healthy eating, get fruits and vegetables, wash them ahead of time, put them in bags so that you can grab and go. And maybe that's a good replacement for that bag of Cheetos or for those cookies. Apples, strawberries, bananas, oranges, they're all high in fiber, and we as a nation are low in our fiber recommendations, right? So it keeps you fuller longer. It helps with digestion. It can help with diabetes and cholesterol. Carrots and cauliflower, if you're more of a vegetable fan, do the same thing. Throw in mixed nuts for protein. If you need a little sweet, toss in some M&Ms. Make smoothies with protein powder to hold your hunger over. You can add avocado because it doesn't really change the taste of the smoothie very much, but it's a big appetite suppressant. Freeze your fruits that are starting to go bad, throw them in your smoothies. Pro tip though is keep your apples away from your other fruits. They release the gas that make everything ripen faster. So if your space is in view of all your toys, TVs, video games, books, or other distractions, then find a space away from that, preferably with a door. If that's not available, what about a DIY wall? Ceiling hooks holding rope tied around a curtain rod can provide you with a divider. Finding yourself bored on your off time, then buy a cheap white curtain, decorate it, make it an art project. My kids have a don't enter and Fortniting on their door. Why can't we have an adult version of that, right? Get creative. So what you're seeing here on the screen is a more elaborate idea where I've done this before. It's not too hard, where you buy some PVC pipe, create a frame with feet, and you can throw some rocks in there to load it down, sew some fabric, slide it over the top. Now you've got yourself a divider and also a projector if you want to do some social distancing movie out back, if you got a projector for that. So sometimes an audio divider can be just as beneficial as a physical one. You can find wireless noise canceling headphones on Amazon for as little as $40. I'm dependent on mine. My attentional powers are getting poorer as I age. So, having music playing often provides some ability to focus if I've got a lot going on in the background. So, for those of you folks that can listen to spoken word and also work, I cannot. Podcasts are also wonderful tools. They help engage the brain, fill your space with the voice of another person. I like NPR's Hidden Brain because it pairs well with the field of psychology. There's the TED Radio Hour, which are the podcast version of those great TED Talks, which always inspire me, get my creativity flowing. Mainly, though, I gravitate towards instrumental stuff because it doesn't divide my focus, and I can stay productive and still drown out those noises. Just as the space you're working in primes you, so is what you wear. Right, so this is the section where I tell you to wear pants. A study in which participants were put in a lab coat showed that physically wearing the lab coat increased selective attention compared to those that were just wearing the clothes they came in with. In another variation of the study, wearing a lab coat described by the researchers as a doctor's coat increased sustained attention compared to wearing the same coat, but describing it as a painter's coat. Right, so that's why dressing up, or at least wearing something different from your off-work clothes, can give you a productive edge. And this doesn't just impact you, it will influence those around you. Early into this, I was guilty of rolling out of bed and throwing on what my 11-year-old called soft clothes. But I started researching the topic and made an effort to wear something more businesslike. Interestingly, I recognized a decrease in the number of interruptions from my kids. I'm not saying they stopped, but they definitely went down. And there appeared to be a more thoughtfulness about the way they interrupted, as if they were assessing what was going on and then asking if it was okay to break in. People respond to the presence you're displaying. I mentioned kids, so let's talk about family briefly, even though this workshop has alone in the title. There's nothing more isolating than being at home and your family going about their business, not even acknowledging your presence. So, and the fact that you're working, talk about feeling invisible, right? So the old tried and true family meeting comes into play here. Start developing a plan with them on how they can be more respectful of your time and space, and you can be of theirs. Especially with school starting back up. Come up with symbols that indicate that you're in a meeting and people need to be quiet. A sign on the door, or your divider, maybe like this adulting one. Wear a tiara, cut out a picture of your face frowning and attach it to the back of your head. Get creative. It's just important to get family input, because if some of the ideas are theirs, then you get more buy-in and it increases your chances of success. Use your breaks strategically. I tell my kids I work for a few hours, then we do something for my 15-minute break, and then maybe something longer for lunch. In fact, I've heard some people after doing this workshop say that playing with their kids is relaxing and helps them maintain their good health. I like jumping on the Xbox with my boys as well when I have a minute, but quickly jump off because they always beat me. So when I feel old. So obviously, we might need to get more lenient on how much screen time we're allowing kids. Just do the extra work to set the parental restrictions. Make sure that they're staying safe and talk with them about predators. I've had my kids go through cookbooks and get online on food sites and come up with recipes that they're interested in. That helps with developing the grocery list. I bribe them by telling them that they're going to get their favorite dessert if they come up with the meal. For younger kids, they may enjoy going to work, like mom and dad. You can set them up with their own little desk, paper and crayons, something to mimic your workspace. And for the real little ones, knowing your kids' nap schedules and feeding schedules and planning around that is key, because naps are maybe when you can do those more complicated tasks that require concentration and skill. Start charting your kids' ability to be in their crib or their playpen, teething rings and toys, so you can plan more effectively. When I do my time management workshop, I argue that the first step to organizing is writing down how you go about your day, so you know what your patterns are and how long things take. It's the same type of idea when observing your children. Ask yourself what makes you feel that you're having a productive day. Start by setting out some goals for your work first thing, and loosely schedule them around already set appointments or your kids' patterns or your own. If you don't know your own patterns, such as like most attentive or most sleepy, most energized, then track it. Set a timer for every 30 minutes and quickly write down how you're feeling using these scales or some other descriptor that's important. You'll start seeing patterns that you can use when you're fleshing out your daily goals. As I mentioned, look up the great resources on My Purpose, or reach out to me at Keep to talk about more time management strategies and how to implement them. I've also included some time tracker apps in the handouts that will look at workflow, but they also look at bad habits. We've got to be mindful of being drawn to the news too often, especially if our anxiety is high, and that happens with a lot of folks. So, not much is really going on to change the way of knowing how to remain safe. New information is probably not great information right now, but I'm not saying don't be informed, but we must be deliberate about how often we're looking. We must decrease, if it's taking a lot of our time or it's causing a lot of distress, and you can ask your supports to keep you up to date if you're struggling to limit it, and that just helps you stay connected with others. So, and you can use technology against technology. There's a great online website extension called News Feed Eradicator. It actually blurs out news on your Facebook feed and lets you replace it with inspirational quotes. There's stuff on iPhones and Androids that can help you reduce the amount that you use, track your time. I've included a link on a great article in a handout about that stuff. Small things like turning your screen from color to black and white. That's less appealing to the brain than those shiny app icons, or restricting your home page to just utilities like your settings or a camera or a clock. These types of interventions slow you down. They force awareness of that extra step, which can make all the difference in breaking habits. So as we've seen, it takes a lot to stay on task and remain productive. So be kind to yourself. Pledge that your work is done when it's done. It's easier to do that when we physically leave work, but more of a challenge when we're living in work, right? So don't let that work creep happen where you find yourself working past time or get a thought about something and find yourself in your workspace wondering where the last 30 minutes went. If you've already developed a plan with them, then give them permission to keep you honest. It's probably going to happen organically anyway. My youngest has this habit now of yelling, "He's doing it again," when I go past 4:30. Sometimes we need a way to symbolize the end of the day. Usually we drive home, but if that's not an option, then go ahead and get in your car anyway. Take a ride, put on a favorite song, go out and go for a walk. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration actually has said that exercise is an approved treatment for mild to moderate depression. Studies show a brisk 30 minutes 3 times a week does wonders for mood. I stopped going to the gym, so that was a difficult adjustment for me. So I had to pivot. I'm doing more aerobics now, running, walking, making my kids move. I ordered a pull-up bar about a month into all this, and then I had to order it 2 more times because they kept running out of stock. I had this image of this smug buff guy doing pull-ups suspended over a giant bin of toilet paper while dried pasta cooked on the stove. It's a relief now when I go to the grocery store and all those things are on the shelf still. It feels less like the Hunger Games. There's a lot of good websites with workouts you can do using your own body weight, things around the house like empty milk jugs, and I've linked to one in the handouts that has videos that go along with it. We have to move, and remembering that is important. Much of our negative thinking is not anchored in the present, but instead is rumination about the past. Meditation can be a wonderful way to connect to the present. It's shown us to increase focus, improve emotional regulation, increase awareness of the signs that we're stressed so that we can take steps to mitigate the more serious effects. Like I said, we've got some on our webpage, but there's lots of great apps out there and other resources. There's also a book that I'm a big fan of called The Little Book of Being. It's nice because each chapter is only a few pages. It's a bunch of different types of meditations and why it's beneficial. And this is great for someone new to the practice. That's also in your resource section. Make sure you're getting your 7 to 8 hours when you can of sleep. You got to be careful of that late night fuzzy math when you're trying to finish out a binge of a particular TV show. And you're saying to yourself, well, it says it's only 48 minutes long. I just have to get out of bed at 7:15 to get to my computer. Well, don't forget if you're watching Hulu, there's still commercials, right? The same 3 they play over and over and over again. It makes you want to pull out the Amazon Fire Stick and jam it in your eye socket. And don't forget, you still have to get off the couch. You still have to brush your teeth. You still have to get in bed and fall asleep. And the average time for people to fall asleep is around 30 minutes. So, starting a bedtime routine, if you haven't, just as you should everything else, should be a priority. And don't work from bed. If your job stresses you out, then you don't want to associate that with bed and sleep. Eliminate your screen time. You probably already heard that, the light from screens mimics that of the sun and messes with the neurochemistry that regulates our sleep cycle. So if you're having problems falling asleep, then cut that out an hour before time. Make a routine in the morning. If you're rolling out of bed at 7:57, logging in at 8, then you're not awake yet, and you're probably not showered unless you're running through a sprinkler. And what's it feel like? It feels like the weekend, and you're probably not working. You're probably not moving with urgency, and not being awake or in the right mindset puts you at risk to gravitate towards mindless activities like social media scanning, internet surfing, and other distractions. So start your day off right. So it may be hard to make these alterations if we're feeling down about everything. I do private practice work, and a lot of my clients have had an improvement of mood and then had it bottom out again because of the realization that the summer's over. We're still having to keep vigilant. That uncertainty is still out there. You have to be aware of these things and try to change the narrative. And something really to consider is thinking about the way we consider people with depression. People with depression see a pattern of belief system that's stable, global, internal. Okay, so stable, nothing's going to change. Everything changes. You just got to wait long enough. Sometimes it's for the worse, as we've seen of late, but often it gets better. So we got to remember that. We've adjusted to a lot, like airport security, quickly evolving technology, sparkly vampires, right? I love the things that they've done with all the masks out there. You know, anybody a Stones fan like me? And this one just kind of blows my mind. But stable, everything's always changing. That's not the case. Global, that it's going to be bad everywhere. There's lots of good things out there. And like I said, there's some good news websites I linked to. There's a lot of people doing volunteer work. You know, some of the information I found on isolation indicates that volunteerism has gone down. What we're seeing is that with compassion therapy, and which is a burgeoning approach that uses compassion for self and others as a way to deal with mood issues, that giving back can really be beneficial. And so there's a lot of websites out there that show you how to virtually help folks. You know, there was a great story about this pre-med student at the University of Nevada, and got 20 members of her medical sorority together to deliver food to elderly in the area who couldn't get out, called Shopping Angels. She's now got a Facebook page. It's a pretty cool story. And then finally, internal, that, you know, we might worry that we're going to be the one that gives COVID to somebody else. You know, get the test. It's not comfortable, but it helps you know. It gives you some information. Make sure that you're following the medical recommendations about how to stay sanitized, washing your hands, not touching your face. You know, we don't want to have to worry about spreading that stuff. All right, I'm getting close to the end here. And so we're on the last couple of slides. You know, just these are going to be basically a repetition of what we already discussed. You know, make time for face-to-face if you can. Nothing beats that communication. Regularly checking in with remote workers using the technology that we have. If you're not comfortable with it, get yourself trained. If you are comfortable, help others build that skill. And if you're not able to use those platforms, don't have access to them, you know, do a lot of calling and contact. You know, hopping on a 5-minute call can save you hours of back and forth over email and text. Positive reinforcement and inclusion. You know, we want to make sure that, you know, we're still celebrating people's birthdays. You know, virtual lunches, things like that can be really beneficial. Clear expectations. You know, the change in environment doesn't mean that there isn't work to be done. Of course there is. You know, what's the expectation for your folks, and make sure that they know. That's why communication and constant communication continues to be key, and that positive feedback that motivates your staff and your colleagues. And then, you know, for your own sanity, trust that they're doing the work until you have reason to think that they're not. And, you know, having things in place to be able to kind of monitor productivity and what they're doing, that helps you. And then obviously, you know, relying back on coaching and the progressive disciplinary process, and, you know, referrals to us at KEEP if necessary. So, you know, don't fall back on the convenient, speedy ways to communicate. There's sometimes not enough information. Make sure you're checking in with your folks a little bit more substantially. And then you want to model that good behavior. All right. So as I said before, you know, I try to make it a little bit lighthearted because I think this is what we need during this time. But, you know, there are lots of people out there struggling with this. So give us a call, you know, reach out. It's confidential, or, you know, get people to us if you can, provide them with the contact information, talk up how nice we are, all that good stuff. You know, I briefly talked about some of the issues that are going on with domestic violence on the rise. Suicidality is on the rise. Of course, that's been an issue even before COVID. But there's a lot of risk factors out there. So when you can get folks to us, you know, please try to do that. And if you ever have any questions about any of the stuff we talked about today, or making referrals, or you know, the services we provide, you know how to reach us. I'm gonna look to see. I don't know if there are any questions. My Q&A box is empty. All right. So if anybody has any questions, feel free. And, you know, with the contact information on the screen, you know, either shoot me an email, I'm on the global, or reach me by phone, and I'd be happy to discuss any of the stuff we talked about today further, because, you know, that's what we do. So, all right. Okay, well, it looks like we're set there on the questions. Thank you again for your attention. Please take care of yourselves, And I'm going to turn the mic back over to Elena to move you all forward with the rest of the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Zach, for this great, informative, and certainly timely presentation. We appreciate you sharing this information with the Kentucky chapter today. I think in these uncertain times, we can all benefit from some guidance on how to pivot and navigate in this new environment. As Zach mentioned, the importance of taking care of ourselves, maintaining connections, communicating often, and taking advantage of My Purpose Learning on Demand virtual training are just a few things that we can do during this time. So all great information. Again, thank you, Zach. Before we move forward, I'll pause here for a moment just to see. It doesn't look like we have any questions. Do we have any questions? Renata is monitoring our question box. So if you do have any questions, comments, feedback, anything, just as a reminder, you can provide that in that Q&A box that you have. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions at the moment, so we'll continue to monitor that throughout in case any do come in. But for now, we're going to go ahead then and move forward to our Kentucky IPMA-HR Fall Business Meeting. So the fall meeting will now come to order. Okay, I would like to start the meeting by recognizing our 2019-2020 Board of Directors and Committee Chairs. I cannot say enough positive things about this Board of Directors. It has been my absolute honor to serve with these leaders of the chapter. This board has accomplished so many things over the past year. We have sponsored our first Kentucky Lead Conference in 2019, sponsored an amazing speaker, Derek Anderson. We have offered various professional development opportunities in our meetings and hosted our first annual spring conference, The Magic of HR, at the infamous Kentucky Castle, which went fabulous and had us all feeling like HR royalty, as well as we will be sponsoring the upcoming Kentucky Lead Conference this fall. I want to sincerely thank this board for their unwavering hard work and dedication to the chapter. It has been my privilege to work with such a great group. I would like to recognize the members. The members of the 2019 and 2020 board include Elena Myers, President, Larry Gillis, President-elect, Grover Dale Clemens, immediate past President, Michelle Barnes, Secretary, Rebecca Ogden, Treasurer, Renata Simmons, Membership Coordinator, Melanie Jenkins, Member at Large, Robbie Perkins, Appointed Member at Large. For committee chairs, Stan Sauchi, Audit Committee, Robbie Perkins, AV IT Committee Chair, Stephanie Carpenter, Events and Hospitality Committee Chair, Beth Feddersen, Registration Committee Chair, and Singer Buchanan, Nominations Committee Chair. Again, thank you to everyone who participated on the Board of Directors this year. Your hard work and dedication to the Kentucky chapter of IPMA is greatly appreciated, and it has been my honor and pleasure to work with you throughout this year. And here in the next slide, we have just a few great memories over the past year. Have had lots, many, many more than this, but just to highlight a few, we've had a lot of great, great memories. Okay, we are now going to move forward to our Distinguished Service Award. The Board of Directors may present the Kentucky Chapter Distinguished Service Award annually. The award criteria shall be for a person who has made outstanding contributions to the Kentucky chapter. Possible reasons for nomination include the following: promotes and supports association functions, exhibits exceptional level of service to the chapter, excels beyond expectations of an association member, and is an outstanding IPMA role model. This recipient must have made a positive impact that directly or indirectly improves the well-being of our membership. The Board of Directors is honored to present the 2020 Distinguished Service Award to Mr. Robbie Perkins. Robbie has been a dedicated member of the Kentucky Chapter of IPMA-HR for many years, serving in multiple roles: President-elect, President, past President, currently appointed member at large, and AVIT Committee Chair. Robbie continually goes above and beyond, devoting his time and energy to ensure the success of the chapter. Robbie was instrumental in the planning and execution of the incredible spring conference at the Kentucky Castle. The conference was a great opportunity and success for our Kentucky chapter due to the hard work of Robbie and many other devoted chapter members. Robbie's unwavering dedication and willingness to serve and support the Kentucky chapter is highly recognized and immensely appreciated. Please join me in congratulating Robbie Perkins on receiving the 2020 Distinguished Service Award. Congratulations, Robbie. Okay, we are now going to move on to the old business portion of the meeting. Secretary Michelle Barnes will now present the meeting minutes from our last meeting. I will turn it over to Michelle.
Thank you, Elena. It's nice to have everyone with us today. The Kentucky Chapter IPMA-HR held the 2020 Spring Business Meeting on Tuesday, March 3rd at Kentucky Castle in Versailles. Under old business, there was a review of the minutes from the 2019 fall meeting. Rebecca Ogden, treasurer, read the treasurer's report. Audit Chair Stan Sauchi announced the completion of the 2018 audit for the financial records. Books were found to be in good order. Chapter President-elect Larry Gillis reported on the Connections program. It will be revamped in the upcoming year. Under new business, Chapter President-elect Larry Gillis reported the Southern Region Conference was scheduled March 8th through 11th in Charleston, South Carolina. Awards Chair Singer Buchanan announced the recipient of the 2019 Walter Gaddis Jr. Award had been determined. The winner was Mary Elizabeth Bailey, Commissioner of the Department of Human Resource Administration. The business meeting was declared adjourned. Back to you, Elena.
Okay, are there any corrections to the minutes as read? Do we have a motion to accept the reading of the Secretary's minutes?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been moved and seconded to accept the Secretary's minutes. Thank you, Michelle. Next up, we have our Treasurer, Rebecca Ogden, who will now present the Treasurer's report. Rebecca?
Thank you, Elena. I'm glad to see everybody here on the meeting today. Our treasurer's report is we had a beginning balance on March the 3rd of $9,647.21. We had expenditures of $7,278.05. Of course, in those expenditures was pretty much all the spring conference expenses. And then we had deposits of $8,557.40. giving us an ending balance as of yesterday of $10,926.56. Thank you, Elena.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Are there any corrections to the Treasurer's report? Do we have a motion to accept the Treasurer's report?
I move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I move.
Second.
Okay, motion has been moved and seconded to accept the Treasurer's report. Thank you, Rebecca. All right, next we have President-elect Larry Gillis, who is going to provide updates on Southern Region and International IPMA. So I will now turn it over to Larry.
Thank you, Elena. For the Southern Region update, the training conference was held in Charleston, South Carolina from March 8th to the 11th. This was the week after our conference at the castle. And this was early for the Southern region. Usually it's in May, but we were able to get it in, and actually we were the only region to able to have a live in-person conference because of COVID. It was a very successful event. It was well attended, and as far as we know, no one contracted COVID-19 that went to the conference. And the Southern region did well, and they're doing well financially. Next year, the conference is scheduled for New Orleans, Louisiana, and they have not yet made a decision whether or not it will be in person or virtual. I'm hoping that it will be in person, but we'll see what they decide. And if they can't have it in person, maybe they can move it to the next year, hopefully. So that's the Southern region update. They're also Southern region is also revamping their web page, so look forward to that. That'll be a big help when they actually get that finished. As far as the national news, as you know, in our conference in March, we had outgoing Executive Director Neil Reichenberg, who retired after 31 years, and he was able to attend our conference. And so on June the 1st, the Executive Council, the association, appointed Ms. Kara Woodson Welch to be the new Executive Director. And she's an attorney in the DC area, and she has nearly 30 years of experience in association management and leadership. And haven't had a chance to talk with her personally yet, but I understand that in the first 90 days, she's making a lot of good changes. The International Training Conference, which was scheduled in Baltimore this year, has been canceled, obviously because of the pandemic, and it's been replaced by a 2-day virtual conference, which is titled Building a New Vision Together, on October 21st and 22nd. And this does require registration. I think when you look at the actual agenda, I think it's 5 hours each day. But if you are a national member, the registration is only $50 and $85 for non-national members. So a good chance to get 10 hours of some good professional development and leadership. Next year's training conference is scheduled for Indianapolis, so hopefully we'll be able to have that. And finally, I wanted to mention the leadership conference. That's the conference that's held every year for the president and president-elect of each chapter is invited to this, and they move around the country. This year it was scheduled to be in Salt Lake City, and of course that was canceled. It will actually be held this Saturday, virtually, September 12th, and it's by invitation. And so I'm scheduled to attend that, and whoever we elect as president-elect today will also be invited to attend that. So that's the news I have for both the Southern region and national at this time. Elena?
Okay, thank you, Larry, for those updates and for sharing that information with us. Hopefully some of you will be able to take advantage of the opportunity to attend some of those conferences. Of course, having them virtually in some regards can make it easier for folks to attend as well. So again, thank you, Larry. Now we're going to be moving on to our new business. I will first start off the new business by turning the floor over to our appointed member at large, Robbie Perkins. He is going to share information about the upcoming Governor's Conference on Leadership, Equality, Accessibility, and Diversity, the Kentucky LEAD Conference. Robbie?
Jackie.
And can others hear Robbie?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
Thank you, Elena.
Make sure. Yes, go ahead.
We will start over. That is obviously, one of the challenges with virtual conferences. When you're speaking, if you're muted or not. So with that said, on behalf of the Personnel Cabinet, we would like to invite you to the 2020 virtual Governor's Conference on Leadership, Equality, Accessibility, and Diversity, KY-LEAD. More information can be found at kylead.ky.gov. We're excited to be offering this event virtually. Obviously, there are difficulties and challenges with virtual events, but rest assured that you're getting experience today on the same technology that we will be using for the KY Lead Conference in November. Again, it's in November the 18th and 19th virtually. Tickets will be available on the Kentucky Chapter of IPMA-HR's Ticket Leap site, the same one in which you purchase your ticket for our other events, as well as your membership dues. Those ticket sales will go on sale September the 15th, and you can get to that site from our Kentucky Chapter website, and there will be multiple communications sent eventually as we move forward in the planning stages and rollout of ticket sales and additional information. The Kentucky Chapter of IPMA, I'm proud to announce on behalf of the Board of Directors that, again, we are the sponsor for the Personnel Cabinet's registration site for KY Lead. So you will go and access your tickets there. And also happy to report on behalf of the Board of Directors that we have submitted a donation, a sponsorship of the conference of $500. So that, in addition to our role as the sponsor for registration for the event, it is a pleasure to be in partnership again with the Personnel Cabinet. You know, this organization, as well as the Personnel Cabinet, works in tandem to provide services to our HR professionals across the state. So we hope to see you there. And with that, I would like to transition into playing a video from Governor Beshear about this year's conference. Bear with me just a minute as we're queuing it up.
As Kentuckians, we must stand united to address the disparities that exist in our Commonwealth. We each have a responsibility to change our state for the better, for this generation and for the next. There is no better time to begin examining the roles we play as professionals, leaders, and public servants in creating equitable opportunities for all our people. We must promote diversity and acceptance, not only in our workplaces, but also our communities. Our words matter, but our actions speak loudest of all. I want It will inspire new ways of thinking about inclusion, equality, and leadership in education, faith, law, government, healthcare, criminal justice, and other critical areas. I believe Team Kentucky has what it takes to look beyond political and cultural differences to improve the quality of life for every Kentuckian. With the right tools and shared vision, there's nothing we can't accomplish. This year's conference theme, Embracing Diversity and Strengthening Communities for a Better Kentucky, speaks to that very sentiment. And as an attendee, my hope is that you will be inspired to create measurable, positive impact where you live and work. An equitable Kentucky is a better Kentucky. So we hope you can join us at this year's KY Lead Virtual Conference as we hear from some of the leading voices serving on the front lines of social change. We celebrate our fellow Kentuckians and we connect with colleagues from across the state. Join us online from your smartphone or computer on November 18th and 19th for 2 days of inspiration and tangible strategies to move Kentucky forward. Visit kylead.ky.gov for more information. We hope to see you there.
All right, so again, we hope that you will join us for the KY Lead conference in November 18th and 19th. And you can get more information at kylead.ky.gov. So Elena, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Robbie. What a great video. Thank you for sharing that with us. We are certainly looking forward to being a part of the Kentucky Lead Conference this year and to hearing the great content that will be shared. Again, we hope you all will be able to join us as well. Okay, next we are going to move on to our Board of Directors nominations. I will turn the floor over to Singer Buchanan, our Nominations Committee Chair, to present the Board of Director nominations. Singer?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Singer Buchanan. As Elena has mentioned, I'm your state EEO coordinator, and I'm also a member of the Office of Diversity, Equality, and Training. And Robbie, thank you very much for that introduction to our conference that's coming up. I hope that you all will be able to attend, get some leadership skills, and you all can maybe think about joining the board of directors in the future, because you will have the skill set necessary to lead a wonderful organization. Okay, this year we have a wonderful slate of candidates that have been presented to the board for consideration for nomination. We'll start off with the person for president-elect, and that is Renata Simmons. For secretary, we have Michelle Barnes. Treasurer, we have Rebecca Ogden. Member at large, we have Anitra Williams, and our membership coordinator is Emmanuel Charmé. Okay, it's a wonderful slate of candidates for you all. I hope that you will consider accepting this slate. And before I go, I also want to give a special thank you for Grover Dale Clemens for his service on the board. I know he is rotating off as president-elect. 3 years of service is quite a commitment, but it's worth it. And I know that he has grown from this, and I urge you all to please consider, when the opportunities come, to please run for the board of directors and keep making our chapter strong. Elaine, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you very much.
Elena, can you hear me? This is Stan Souchy. I'd like to make a motion to elect the slate of officers for the 2020-2021 IPMA year by acclamation.
And this is Galen, and I would like to second that motion, please.
Okay, thank you, Stan and Galen. We have a motion to close the floor for nominations, and we also have a second. It has been moved and seconded. Since there are no roles being contested, we will accept these nominations as the new 2020-2021 Board of Directors. Thank you and welcome to our new board members and some returning board members. We are excited to work with you going forward. Thank you so much. Okay, I will pause for a moment and just check to see, again, Renata is monitoring the question box. Renata, do we have any questions or comments that we need to address before we move forward?
We do not at this time.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, we will continue on then. I wanted to share another important reminder just regarding our chapter dues. Again, you can pay those on our Kentucky IPMA-HR website. You can also mail in your check and submit the form as we've done in the past. Remember, the strength of our chapter comes from our active participation and inclusion of our members. Active members make valuable contributions to the success of the Kentucky chapter. So we certainly appreciate all of our current members and hope that you will continue to be part of IPMA. And if you are not a part of our Kentucky chapter right now, we hope that you will consider joining us. It is a great opportunity and an honor to be part of the chapter. Okay, it is now time for me to pass on the role as president. I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to serve as your president for the 2019-2020 year. It has been my honor to work with such outstanding HR professionals. Although we've all certainly had our moments of struggle throughout this past year, this board of directors and chapter members have pulled together and continue the great work of the Kentucky chapter. Thank you to all of you for your continued support and dedication to the chapter. As HR professionals, we have the incredible opportunity to make a meaningful difference for employees. As public servants, we have the great honor and responsibility to serve with purpose and positively influence the lives of Kentuckians. IPMA members, I challenge each of you to lean in and become more involved in the Kentucky chapter, to join a committee, to volunteer, to find or be a mentor, and to take advantage of our various networking opportunities. We can certainly do great things when we all work together. So again, thank you for allowing me to serve as your president. It has been a great experience. From a personal perspective, I can tell you I have learned so much and grown so much being a part of this board of directors, have made incredible friendships with other HR professionals and have gained mentors. And so it really is just a great opportunity. And I encourage you all to continue your involvement and become more involved in the chapter. Now, before I turn over my presidency, I do have a couple more folks I would like to recognize. I would like to thank Dale Clemens for his service on the board of directors for the last 3 years. He is now transitioning out of the immediate past president position. Dale has been a great contributor to the success of the chapter, and we thank him for his service. It is my honor to welcome and congratulate a prior president of the Kentucky chapter, Larry Gillis, on his new role as 2020-2021 president of the Kentucky chapter. Larry has been a longtime supporter and devoted member of the IPMA-HR chapter. He has been a great mentor to me and to many others, and we are honored to have him back in the role of presidency. Thank you, Larry, and good luck. I look forward to continuing to work with you on the board. So I will virtually now pass the gavel to Larry. Congratulations, Larry.
Thank you, Elena, and I have the gavel. So thank you for that, and thank you for your service as president. It's been a difficult year with the pandemic, and we had to extend the year past the June meeting, and so you had to serve an extra 3 months as president, and Dale Clemens as past president had to serve an extra 3 months, as well as the other board members. And so I want to thank you and thank Dale for his 3 years of service on the board. And obviously we're not finished with you all. We want you all to still contribute. Dale, that means we still need you to help with sponsorships and other things. So if you're listening, I'll be giving you a call. But I want to congratulate the 5 new members of the board today, Renata, Emmanuel, Anitra, Michelle, and Rebecca, who continue to stay on. And one of the abilities of the president is to, I can appoint, the president can appoint up to 2 additional members at large to the board of directors. And yesterday I spoke with Robbie and I asked him if he wanted to continue on his role, and he said yes. So my first act as president today will be naming Robbie as an additional member at large to the board. So Robbie will continue on with the great group we have going. I'm looking at questions here. If there's any questions, any comments, we can address those. This is our first virtual meeting. We had a little audio issue there towards one part there, but other than that, I think it went rather well. And keep the date, December 10th for the next winter meeting. It's a Thursday, December 10th. That's what we're planning on. It will be another virtual meeting, as we will not be able to hold an in-person meeting of that size at that time. So another meeting 3 months from today, I think, Thursday, December 10th. And we'll be putting together the new board. We'll be putting together a good agenda for that meeting. So if there's no questions, and without objection, this meeting is adjourned.
you.